One Sunday morning, G. Campbell Morgan preached this extraordinary message on prayer. And a proper English woman came to him in the lobby after the service was over. She had on white gloves and took G. Campbell Morgan's hand with her white gloves and said, "Mr. Morgan, can I pray about little things, or do I only pray about big things to God?" And G. Campbell Morgan looked at her and said, "Dear woman, everything in your life is little to God." What they needed to see is that no prayer was too hard to answer, no circumstance too hard for God to overturn, no obstacle too hard to remove, no door too hard to open, no heart too hard for God to humble, no soul too hard for God to save.
Perhaps your prayers are puny because you worship a puny God, and it keeps you from asking, seeking, and banging on the door. First, perhaps you think God doesn't listen. Perhaps you think God doesn't care. But perhaps worse, you think that God can't do anything about it. That is a really puny God. When we remember that God is in control of everything and has the power to do anything, look, our situations, they're not completely worthless. There's nothing really big happening in our lives. But to God, it is just no big deal. And that's not to minimize perhaps the difficulty that you're going through, but it is to recognize that God can absolutely do something about it. Is it possible that you have been fretting over the state of the world? Maybe you watch cable news a lot and you think, ay, 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 you watch the stock market, it's woo, 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 and it's based, somebody sneezed in Taiwan and the stock market falls, and you're gripped by national affairs and it causes you to be wobbly. That is when we need to remember who is in charge of nations.
Behold, the nations are like a drop from a bucket. Verse 15. And are regarded as a speck of dust on the scales. In other words, all of the nations that are threatening Israel, all of the nations that are stressing and causing their worry and anxiety, Isaiah is saying they are so insignificant compared to God that they are like a speck of dust on scales. They do not even weigh in.
Empires come, empires go. Political parties and politicians, they're in one day, they're out the next. Why? Is it because we haven't been active enough in the political scene? No. It's because God is sovereign over nations.
I had a lamp at home that had a lion, and it represented the British Empire. And the paw of the lamp is upon a globe, and it shows the dominance of the British Empire in the 19th century over the entire earth. But in reality, the Lion of the tribe of Judah has his paw upon the globe, and he dominates the world scene by the carrying out of his purposes here upon the earth.
Puny view of God equals lots of anxiety. A high view of God brings about the fruit of peace.